All right, welcome back. First Charge Up has officially now been played for 3 weeks, and we saw some great competitions across the world. We have a lot to unpack in this show, like breaking down the buildup of Swerve's Drive Specialties, otherwise known as SDS, and 29 taking the crown this past weekend. The 971 Alliance at SFR playing with two robots in the finals, and a discussion around the red card situation in First Charged Up. All of this and more coming up on this episode of FRC Roundup.
This video on First Updates Now is made possible by viewers like you and also the following sponsors. Kettering University is looking for talented robotics students who want to continue learning and innovating in a hands-on, real-world experience format. Kettering University representatives will be at dozens of FIRST events this season, including the championship. Go to kettering.edu/first to see which events you can meet a Kettering University representative. FRC competition season is here. Submit your favorite moments to FRC Clips of the Week by each Sunday at discord.gg/firstupdatesnow. Also, the FRC Top 25 poll is open Sunday 5 p.m. Eastern to Monday 5 p.m. Eastern, where you can vote for your top 25 teams of the week at firstupdatesnow.com/FRC Top 25.
All right, welcome to the show. If you have not caught our show previously, FRC Roundup is where we take important topics currently happening in FRC, highlight some discussion points about events that may have happened, strategy, or anything that correlates with FRC. If you, the fun community, think that there is a topic that we should discuss on FRC Roundup, please feel free to ping me on the Fun Discord, and I'll be more than happy to take a look at it. If you're not familiar with me, my name is Nick Mathis, and I am currently in the First and Michigan region and am a mentor on Team 33, the Killer Bees.
And I'm Connor McBride, mentor for Team 166 Chop Shop, and MC and game announcer in the New England District. Our guest tonight is Patrick Woolfenden. Patrick is the creator and owner of Swerve Drive Specialties and lead mentor for PNW Powerhouse 2910 Jack in the Bot from Mill Creek, Washington. Patrick, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, no problem, Patrick. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. Our first topic for tonight is going to be breaking down the history of Swerve Drive Specialties. I know that SDS has really taken the FRC community by storm in the past couple of years, and frankly, every top team in the nation that is on Einstein and is Swerve is more than not probably running SDS. I know that I want to say it was like over 50% of the teams that were on Einstein last year at Houston were running SDS. So the product speaks for itself. So Patrick, we'll go ahead and give it to you. And if you just want to talk a little bit about, really what was the idea behind creating SDS, obviously moving through the different variations of the module and its history behind that. But yeah, we'll go ahead and throw it to you. And what really made you guys decide that you wanted to make SDS what it is today?
Yeah, so back in 2017, we designed the Mark 1 module off-season 2017, and that was super heavily inspired by Aaron Hill's 2014 module. And so 2910 got our off-season bot working really well. We had just gotten this Tormach 440 little milling machine, and yeah, so we were ready to go. We had all the programs ready if we wanted to do Swerve in season, because it was not a COTS item, so we had to remake everything. So yeah, in 2018 we ran the Mark 1 modules on our robot, and they worked really well. And I kind of had this idea I could probably make a company out of this. So in March of 2018, I bought my own Tormach 440 with kind of the idea of starting SDS, and I just found that that mill on Craigslist in Seattle, and bought it. And yeah, so that was March of 2018, and then November of 2018, I think around October of 2018, the Mark 1 module became available for sale. And that was really the start of Swerve Drive Specialties. And then November 2018, Neos were announced, and Neos this totally whole new form factor for motors. The size and weight of them opened up tons of new possibilities, especially for Swerve modules. So by the start of the 2019 season, even though we didn't have like Neos in hand, we had like I had already designed the Mark II module, which is really took advantage of like the small size and weight of the Neo motors. And 2910 ran the Mark IIs in 2019, and then they went for like Swerve Drive Specialties, started selling them in like post season 2019, and then that's like when like Swerve Drive Specialties really started hitting its stride. Like the Mark One, like there are a handful of teams running the Mark One, but the Mark II, there was a lot of demand for. So that's when, yeah, yeah. So like the summer of 2019 is when I bought the Brother Speedio, like vertical machining center, which is like this, yeah, it's like a actual industrial CNC machine where the Tormach is more like a hobby machine.
Mhm.
And the like when I was using the Tormach to make Mark II modules, it would take like over 4 hours per module, and that was like pushing the Tormach to its limits. Like the like I would know when the cutters were getting dull because the spindle would like bog down and stuff like that. Like
You're
so
really pushing it to its limit.
yeah, so just wasn't enough time in the day to keep up using the Tormach. So the I bought the Brother Speedio, which that just like went in my garage. So there was like only a few mills that could actually like fit in the garage. Like they had to like go through the garage door. So that's like I could have gotten like a Haas mini mill or something like that, but none of anything else would have been too big. But the Speedio is like a much more productive machine than like a mini mill, and I don't know, I like the Speedio, so that's what I chose to get. And then so yeah, by the fall of 2022 the Mark III module came out, and the Mark III module used a different like encoding system than the Mark II, like this on-axis encoder, which was actually an idea I had a while ago, but it wasn't really that easy to do with off-the-shelf gears. But by the time the Mark III came around, like there was enough volume and stuff that it made sense to like source the gears ourselves instead of, whereas previously we were buying them from West Coast Products in IndyMark,
Mm-hmm.
and then we were machining the bevel gears. So yeah, the Mark III is really when we found our own gear supplier to make the gears to our specs. And then 2021, the Mark IV and 4i modules came out. And then 2022, the winter of 2022, so like a little over a year ago, was when I quit my full-time job to focus on SDS full-time. And then this past summer, was when SDS moved out of my garage and into our little industrial bay unit that we currently have. And now SDS has a couple full-time employees, Steve and Freya. And then my buddy John is answers all the emails and stuff now. So yeah.
Nice. It's definitely a pretty cool story, hearing you start it and really move it into what it is now. And when I said earlier, and it really is the one of the dynasty companies of FRC. Like SDS is, in my opinion, like one of the main reasons that Swerve has taken the step that it really has the past couple of years. One question that I have for you is, when you were in the idea of creating SDS, and we're thinking, I think I can probably sell these. Did you ever have the thought of, this is what I want to do full time, or was it, more or less, let's start as a hobby and kind of take it off from there and see where it goes?
It definitely, I mean, I think like it started out as a hobby, but it like by the time the Mark II module was like after the 2019 season, it was like, yeah, maybe this could be a full-time thing. And definitely buying the Brother Speedio, like there's no way I could afford that machine unless it was too expensive to be like kind of a toy.
Yeah.
Whereas like the Tormach, you could buy it just as a hobbyist, but like the Speedio like needs to be making money. And then I kind of like throughout the pandemic, like working from home and stuff, I was sort of able to delay like quitting my full-time job, but it was, yeah, I was definitely like a lot more passionate about Swerve Drive Specialties. So like even back then, it kind of, that's what was going to happen.
For sure. Connor, anything for Patrick? I know Tyler's got some he wanted to mention, but wanted to go to you first.
Yeah, so a couple things. One, are you still selling those Miata parts on Swerve Drive Specialties?
Yeah, that's kind of a funny one. Yeah, so no, I'm not selling the Miata part. Yeah, it's sort of a funny story because like when I was moving the company into the shop this summer, like we had to get the right kind of insurance and everything. And it was like, even though like it was like way more expensive if we were selling automotive parts.
So you're like, all right, well, it's probably time to take the Miata parts off the website.
Yeah, and like those were just like, it was like parts I wanted for my car, and I just made like a handful of them for other people who might want them, but it was never like actually really making any sort of money. Yeah,
that's
Sure.
awesome. Tyler, you had something for Patrick?
Yeah, Patrick, man, something I wanted to ask you is, I mean, one of the greatest things about, I think, in FIRST is how many entrepreneurs you're starting to see come out of what this is, right? Like, I mean, you do this full-time, I do this full-time, you got Greg and Andy and Ryan, well, Ryan's not quite full-time, but like so many other people that are now doing this as an entrepreneur full-time. And we talk a lot about successes for things, but it's also really scary a lot of times too. Like there's a lot of things that like, you know, as a business owner or trying to move things forward that you're like, you don't know what's going to happen for things. Do you mind kind of sharing? Like, I love to hear kind of that side of things too. Like, I mean, I get nervous all the time, man. Like as things like, I don't know what's going to happen, or I don't know how my audience is going to take things and stuff. Do you have anything like that happen? Like for you as an entrepreneur and a business owner as well too? You're like, man, like this is terrifying sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. Like it's like my income is like all SDS at this point, so it is like fully dependent on like, is the game good for Swerve Drive?
Right.
So like I like probably more than anybody else, like I am like very curious to know what the game's going to be. I get no more information than anybody else does about what the game is going to be, and yeah.
So just to clarify, Pat, are you so you did not go to like the supplier summit this past year?
No. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm just like not aware of those things, or maybe FIRST doesn't. I don't know.
All right, first take note. It's time to get SDS on the supplier summit now. So we'll talk.
Seriously.
We'll talk after. All right. So all right, for sure. But I appreciate that, man, because it's like I said, you know, when there's so many unknowns, and you're right, you know, being, you know, so Swerve heavy for you from a product mix of things that you don't know, right, and what it could bring, that sort of thing. Last thing I want to ask you too, just as a kind of a wrap a bow on some of this, is you launched a partnership with Andy Mark earlier in towards the end of 2022. Do you mind just talking a little bit about that and what you've seen come out of that so far?
Yeah. So we were really excited about that. Like a lot of teams have already worked with Andy Mark, so it opens up us to like a bunch of new customers, because like SDS isn't the most prepared to deal with all sorts of special like vendor applications and all these things that a bunch of schools that are using purchase orders need to do. We're like now that I've got John working like the administrative side, we can like handle that stuff way better. But yeah, IndyMark's been awesome, and it also lets teams use their like drivetrain opt-out vouchers, and like there's the Black Toad opt-out or something like that.
Yep.
To buy more modules. So yeah, it made a lot of sense, and it's definitely quite a bit more efficient for us to send like a big pallet of stuff to IndyMark, and then they can ship out all the individual orders. So yeah, we're very happy with the partnership.
So does AndyMark actually do any of the manufacturing, or are you doing like 100% of it and just shipping out stock to them?
So we're shipping boxes like the like kitted modules, and then IndyMark also sells them pre-assembled. So IndyMark will do all the pre-assembly if the teams order it that way. And IndyMark also sells the motors and the encoders, which Swerve Drive Specialties doesn't sell any of that stuff.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
Sweet.
Well, thanks for giving us a dive into a little bit of the history of the company. And I know it's, again, one of the more popular companies the past couple of years. And, me included, I was interested to hear the backstory of it. So we'll go and jump into topic 2 of the night.
Hold on. One more thing, Nick,
yeah,
real quick. I just, you don't have to answer this, Patrick, if you don't want to. Are we getting a Mark V?
Like, I'm sure eventually. I think definitely not anytime soon, though. I'm not going to say it for sure won't happen before next season, but I don't have any like thing that's close to being ready to go.
Sure.
So
okay, good to know. That was actually on my list of questions, and I forgot to ask it. So, so jumping into topic 2, I just want to highlight 2 things that really happened this weekend. Patrick, obviously having you on, you guys won your district this past weekend. And then one thing that I other wanted to highlight too was the San Francisco Regional with the 971 situation. So Patrick, just real quick, just overall thoughts on the weekend that 2910 had. I think you guys have lost like 3 matches on the year or something. You've competed at 2 districts. So just overall thoughts at the Sun Dome district, then we'll jump into the SFR discussion.
Yeah, it was a pretty fun event. We lost a couple quals matches early in the quals. So it was, definitely not like as smooth sailing as our week 1 event where we went undefeated. And then we dropped down. We like in playoffs, we immediately dropped into the like losers bracket, lower bracket. Yeah. Unfortunately, one of the robots on our alliance like lost their CAN bus like right at the start of the match, and it was just
unfortunate.
It was just too much to come back from. But everybody was working after that until our first finals match, when the belt on our arm broke, on our pink arm, which is kind of crazy because it's like 15 millimeter with HTD, or it's like GT2 5 millimeter, but it's the like steel tensile cord belt that we used in 2018. So it has like a tensile strength of like over like 700 pounds or something crazy like that, but somehow we broke it. But our arm is like designed to be very quickly replaced. You can take out 1 bolt and like loosen 2 other bolts and disconnect all the connectors, and the whole thing comes off. So we were able to swap it for like the entire new arm before finals 2.
Yeah. Awesome. I know. I remember watching it, and I'd seen the arm break, and I was like, "Oh, yeah." I'm curious how long that's going to take them. You guys are back out the next match with no issues with theirs. So again, obviously, definitely a big fan of your guys' robot. I remember watching the reveal video. Like we were talking about this pre-show, but when they go to the field gate and they drop the gate and your robot's right there, that's how short it is. That's like easily the coolest shot of any robot reveal video that I've seen this year. So that was really cool. But yeah, so we're going to jump into the SFR discussion. I don't know if you got a chance to look at it, Patrick, but 971 at the San Francisco Regional yesterday had actually won the event with only playing with two robots. There was a thread on Chief Delphi that popped up about this, that 971 and 972 played, and their third robot, 8016, had sat those matches out. And it turns out that in a couple posts down, one of the profiles on CD had posted that 8016 had died, and the backup robot that was the next in line that the Alliance could have called actually could not move. And I was interested. I wanted to have a discussion on, because I know obviously when you go to the Alliance selection and there's those top A robots that don't get selected, they get to either accept or decline the decision on whether they want to be a backup robot. So, and again, this is, obviously, allegedly, I don't know this for 100%. We're going off of what the Chief Delphi thread says. So this is actually not the case, and you were that team. Please don't take this as, us coming at you or anything. We're just, having a discussion on what was posted. So, but yeah, I thought it was interesting that if they actually were broke and accepted the invitation, on how that exactly, works. So Connor, I'll go ahead and start with you. Overall thoughts on, 971 playing. It looks like they ended up they do actually play with two robots, as you can see on stream here. So Connor, overall thoughts, maybe it was a strategic decision and they thought the field would be more open with two robots, even though that might not be GP in some people's eyes. But Connor, we'll go ahead and go to you.
So you actually kind of bring up a very interesting point. I mean, on paper, yes, it does free up the field a little bit. There's one less robot that you have to worry about on the field, potentially, them accidentally bumping into you guys while they're trying to play defense when you're running your cycles back and forth. But you just kind of set the scene a little bit. So it's 971 and 972. They're the primary scorers of this alliance. And then their second pick was 8016. So 8016 plays the first three matches of the double elimination bracket. And in their third match, they don't move. So 8016 never returns back to the field. So they play one more double elim match, and then they play the two finals matches. So for three matches, the 971-972 alliance was down by one robot. The balls to be able to do that is insane. To be able to play one robot down and still be scoring, finals one was a 10-point differential, but finals two being nearly 50 points. And then they barely eked out a win in their last double elim match by 1 point. That there's the calls that those teams were making to not bring in a backup robot. And as they were saying, the backup, the first backup selection was supposedly not working. There's a lot riding on that. It paid off in the end, but it's incredible to see how it all played out for sure.
Yeah, and interesting to note too that obviously in finals two there was a red robot that also had died, so it was really a 2v2 in that match. They played, they started the match but it broke in the middle. But Patrick, interesting. A question for you. If you were in a similar scenario that 971 and 972, where you're at an event, your third robot is broke, and the backup robot is either not functional or not up to maybe the strategical capability that your third robot was. What would you do in that situation? Would you make the strategic decision to call the backup robot, or do you think that you guys would be better off maybe running two to hopefully free up the field a little bit?
Yeah, based on the information we have, I think we'd probably do the same thing 971 did. And I think this is kind of an interesting. I think a lot of alliances will call the backup robot after something breaks, and they don't even really know who the backup robot is. But it's definitely something we're always keeping tabs on, what is the backup robot, what does their scouting data look like,
right?
And if a team calls in the backup robot, now who's the next backup robot? Because sometimes even if if when our arm broke finals one, if we didn't have the ability to fix it quickly, it might just, we could still be like a pretty good defense spot, even if our arm's not working. So
Right.
yeah, definitely, like, you just want to be prepared to make the decisions.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Connor, any final thoughts before we go ahead and jump into the final topic?
So I know I've never actually had to call in a backup robot before. I don't know if you guys have. Do you get to like ask the scoring table, like, hey, who's the first backup robot that I like, who's the next one in line?
I'm pretty sure you can. I know that obviously you're given the list of 8.
Yeah.
And when I've had to call them before, I've always just keep track of when one's been called, obviously cross them off the list.
Right.
One thing that I usually like to do too is when I get that list of 8, I want to go right to our scouts and get the data on them, immediately. So that way I'm not in the middle of the playoff round trying to figure out scouting data and if it's the right call for us. So it's nice to just have that data handy right off the bat. But
Sure.
before we jump into our final topic of the night, we're going to go ahead and bring on Tyler to start our giveaway for the show and talk about our show sponsor, Kettering University.
Hey, thanks, guys. I'm going to put Patrick on the spot here because we're going to be giving away a $50 SDS gift card. But Patrick, I didn't ask you. We need a keyword for our audience to type in. What do you think we can type in for what should the audience type in?
Man, I'm like the worst at this kind of stuff.
I mean, we can just do SDS if you want.
Sure.
Perfect. All right, so type SDS in chat right now. That's your opportunity to win. It's not going to be Krusty. We're not putting Krusty in for the giveaway.
Sorry,
That's
Samantha.
a joke from earlier. So, so type in SDS right now. That's your opportunity to win a $50 SDS gift card. Thanks a lot to Patrick and SDS for offering that. And don't forget, you do need to be following in order to be eligible, and we do give a little bit extra luck to our subscribers. And apparently, if you're watching FRC Recap, if you donate like 2,000 bits, you just win now too, apparently. So, but yeah, go ahead. We'll draw for that in just a little bit. And make sure you type in SDS in chat right now. But before we get there, let's give a big shout out and thank you to our show sponsor, Kettering University. If you are looking for a fantastic university to go to that has awesome robotics programs, they have a FIRST Robotics Center at Kettering University where they help support tons of other teams, both FRC and FTC as well. Check out kettering.edu/first. Not only do they have that, they also have a combat robotics team, an esports league, and more. And did you know that 30% of high school students that attend Kettering University were in high school robotics? Kettering University is going to be all over FRC events, including sponsoring the Archimedes field this year at championships as well, too. So make sure you check out Kettering University. Go say hi to a rep. If you go to kettering.edu/first, you can see where they'll have a Kettering rep to see if they'll be at your event. So go to kettering.edu/first. Thanks a lot to Kettering University for their continued support of fun.
Okay, awesome. Thanks again to our folks from Kettering University. Jumping into our final topic of the night, we are going to be looking at the red card situation with First Charged Up. I know that we had touched on this discussion a little bit previously when we had Mike Corsetto from Citrus Circuits on the show a couple weeks back, but when I was watching events again this weekend, it's becoming really apparent that this is an issue that, in my opinion, I think is going to be or should be addressed. I don't know that it ever will be for this year, but obviously due to the nature of the game and having the traffic zone right in the middle where you're constantly going cross field to get pieces, and you have robots that are running L3 gearing on SDS flying across the field, there's bound to have scenarios where robots are going to intersect with each other almost like in a figure-8 race where they intersect and don't even realize that another one's coming, and one of them may tip over. And we're seeing I know we saw it a lot at Port Hueneme as well, that there's red cards being called in those scenarios. And in my opinion, I think that some of them are just outright astonishing on why they're being called. And unfortunately, as most of us probably understand that, basic physics and momentum says that when a robot's flying across the field, it is going to 100% look like the robot is intentionally trying to tip them over, just because their momentum is carrying them through the robot. And it's an unfortunate scenario. Again, it's, in my opinion, a decision that should not be in the referee's hands. Because it is a very difficult call to make, because it's 100% an opinion. You're trying to view the situation and decide, did that robot do that intentionally? And in my opinion, it's just, teams should not be discounted for hitting a robot crossing the field not intentionally, that maybe has a high center of gravity, and they're just clipping them on an angle, and unfortunately they're tipping over because their center of gravity is higher in the air than another robot that might be hitting it. So Connor, I know that you've competed as well. You were GAing this weekend or MCing, I couldn't remember which one you said, but was announcing at the event, and I don't know if you saw anything like this at the previous event that you were at, but I know it's been an issue across the game in general, so we'll go and start with you.
So I do believe we did have a red card for contact inside the frame perimeter, which is exactly what this scenario is. While, yes, the card in this scenario with 3015 and 1450 makes sense. There is contact inside 3015's frame perimeter, and it's damage. The card makes sense. However, the action leading up to it, I completely disagree with. The rule needs to change, because there's 1450 going to pick up a cone from the game right at the midline, and 3015, they rush in, and whether if they're going for the same cone as well, or they're actually trying to hit 1450, I don't know the answer. We wouldn't know unless if we ask the drive team themselves. But to me, it just doesn't make sense as to why that has to be called that way, because 1450 is minding their own business, right?
Yeah, I agree. And again, it's a jurisdiction call where it's hard to understand actually where the robots are going. And in this case, it's not the tipping scenario that I necessarily was discussing, but it is contact within the frame perimeter. So I agree that the way the rule is written, it was the right call. But Patrick, I know that you've competed in 2 competitions. I don't know how many red cards have you seen, in the 2 weeks that you've competed. But what's your overall thoughts with just the general issue of the traffic flow and people being red carded for hitting robots in the intersection?
Yeah, this is something that we are kind of worried about, because our robot is super low and can go super fast and is not tippy. So we had a couple exchanges where the other robots almost tipped over, and this is bumper to bumper contact, no inside frame perimeter stuff. And there was one match at Glacier Peak where us and the other team score our game piece, and then immediately start to go full speed across the field, and then we hit right in the middle, and basically both of us are going full speed, and our robot takes the hit way better than theirs does, just because our CG is so much lower. And thankfully they didn't tip over, and we didn't as soon as that happened, we didn't drive through them. We sort of tried to go around them. But yeah, I don't know, it's a tricky thing, because it's when you watch it on replay, it's obvious that they're just they just scored, and now they're just both going to the loading stations. But it's I can imagine it especially if the ref just sees the aftermath of what happened, because it's hard to watch everything. It's got to be tough to make the right call every single time, just by fractions of a second, and trying to understand exactly what happened.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I think, again, back when the discussion that we were having with Corsetto a couple weeks ago, that 1678 got to the point where they were actually stopping in the intersection and driving around teams to not even take the risk of hitting the robot and taking the chance of a robot tipping over, just due to the nature of the way it was being called at their event. So I know I saw it a couple times this past weekend where robots were stopping and driving around other teams to just try and avoid that collision that was happening in the middle. But so Connor, overall, any thoughts before we go ahead and wrap up the show?
Pretty much covers it up. I mean, overall, I hate the ruling, but unfortunately I hate the ruling, but it's within the rules. So at the end of the day, it sucks.
Right. But Tyler, you had something to add?
Well, I guess my question is where does the onus get put on something like this? Because if it is in the rules, I mean, shouldn't robots be built to not have something like this happen potentially? I'll just kind of take that other side of things, right? Where I don't actually necessarily believe in this too, but if you're looking at having that contact inside the frame perimeter, it's a potential issue for it. I mean, to me, that should be on both sides of teams, where teams should not be built where something can easily disconnect something. And on the other hand, shouldn't robots be more focused on building a way to not initiate contact as well?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's got to be. It's hard to do it, but I think there like build quality has to be brought into the conversation, right? Just like you said, it's got to be a two-sided situation where robots should have that in mind. When at least on my team 33, one of the first things that we said the day of kickoff is our center of gravity has to be extremely low for this game, just due to the nature of how far we're extending out, the intersection issue, and we wanted to make it virtually possible to tip our robot. Well, if you saw the video and clips of the week channel this past weekend, we did tip over. But that was one of our main goals, is to really lower that center of gravity. And I think, like Tyler said, there's got to be, an area.
Let me ask this. I mean, we see so many robots with like super open areas for teams to reach into, right? Like, I mean, to me, the fix to that is, shouldn't there be some sort of requirement to have some sort of like either plexiglass shielding or something like that around areas? Wouldn't that help? I mean, maybe not completely get rid of it, but wouldn't that help at least mitigate something like that? Where if they just put down the rules, I mean, it's like putting a robot out in BattleBots that the robot's completely unshielded for things. You don't do that yet. It seems very common here in FRC to allow that to happen.
So I think the issue, at least in my opinion, and I'll let Connor or Patrick chime in after I answer, but I think the issue you then run into is, based on what you're saying, that virtually eliminates being able to do inside the bumper intakes, right? You would then have to, essentially, if you're adding a panel there, you may as well just build a solid chassis instead of having a chassis cut out to do any sort of in the bumper intake and doing it all out of the bumper. But Connor, Patrick, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, like, I know, like, it's not BattleBots, and I don't know how practical it is to have to add extra shielding and stuff. I do think that one, like, we're sort of talking about two different situations, the bumper to bumper contact and like the high CG robot tipping over. And as far as like that situation is concerned, I think like it is so uncommon for someone to like try to intentionally tip another robot.
It's very uncommon.
Yeah, like that. Like I don't think that's really like ever what people are like actually trying to do. And then as far as the like touching inside the frame perimeter, the specific one that we were talking about with 1405 and yeah, that one I do like. I think it was probably called wrong with the like, because the teams their intake went down and then the other team like drove into it. I don't think they like initiated the contact. Although like if the ref doesn't happen to be like watching it at that exact moment, like their intake did like rip the wires out. So it's yeah, it's another, like, it's so easy to see like what when you are watching the replay, but man, it must be really hard to get it right all the time.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, all right. Well, before we go ahead and wrap up the show, we'll go ahead and bring Tyler back on to draw for our giveaway.
Yeah, thanks again to SDS for providing the awesome giveaway, or Patrick here really in front of us. Let's go ahead and roll for the winner, and it's going to be Venice Mason. Congratulations. Make sure to reach out to First Updates Now on either Twitch or myself, Tyler, on Discord with your name and email address so we can get that out to SDS to ship out. Thanks a lot to SDS and Patrick for providing the awesome giveaway. Go check them out at swervedrivespecialties.com.
Yeah, so thanks again, everybody, for tuning into FRC Roundup. Special thanks to all those who clicked that follow button or stepped up to help fund with a Twitch subscription or donation tonight. Your support really helps us continue to make great content. Don't forget, you can watch FRC Roundup archived at youtube.com/First Updates Now and watch live Mondays after FRC Recap during the competition season. Thank you to Patrick, our guest from Swerve Drive Specialties and 2910 for coming on tonight. And on behalf of our producer, Tyler Olds, my co-host, Connor, and all fun correspondents, I'm Mick Jr., and thanks for watching. Good luck to all teams competing in Week 4 of the competition season. Big thanks to our moderators in chat as well. See you next week, same day, same time, where we take a look at what is going on with First Robotics on FRC Roundup. Thanks, everyone.
This video on First Updates Now is made possible by viewers like you and also the following sponsors. Kettering University is looking for talented robotics students who want to continue learning and innovating in a hands-on, real-world experience format. Kettering University representatives will be at dozens of FIRST events this season, including the championship. Go to kettering.edu/FIRST to see which events you can meet a Kettering University representative. FRC competition season is here. Submit your favorite moments to FRC Clips of the Week by each Sunday at discord.gg/firstupdatesnow. Also, the FRC Top 25 poll is open Sunday 5 p.m. Eastern to Monday 5 p.m. Eastern, where you can vote for your top 25 teams of the week at firstupdatesnow.com/FRC Top 25. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to stay up to date on our new videos. Keep the conversation going and provide your input to our content. Watch our live shows at twitch.tv/firstupdatesnow. Join our Discord at discord.gg/firstupdatesnow and check out Fun FTC on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and First Updates Now on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter.